The alarm bells rang through Deep Space Research Station horizon like the cries of dying birds. Captain Jake Morrison ran down the metal corridors, his boots making loud sounds on the floor. He had been sleeping when the emergency call came. Now his heart was beating fast as he rushed to the command center. "What do we have?" Jake asked as he entered the room. The walls were covered with screens showing stars and empty space. Dr. Lisa Hamilton stood next to the main display, her face white with fear. "Long-range sensors picked up something big," Lisa said. Her voice was shaking. "Really big, Captain. Look at this." The main screen showed a group of dark shapes moving through space. They were still far away, but the computer was counting them. The number kept growing. 50 ships, 100 ships, 200 ships. How many? Jake asked, even though he was afraid to hear the answer. 412 vessels, said the computer in its calm voice. All unknown design, all heavily armed. Jake felt his stomach drop. Humanity had maybe 80 warships in total, spread across 12 different colonies. This fleet was 5 times larger than everything humans had ever built. "Can we tell who they are?" Jake asked. Lisa worked at her computer. "I'm trying to match their ship designs with our database." She stopped typing and looked up. "Captain, I think these are Krethak ships." The room went quiet. Everyone had heard stories about the Krethak Empire. They were a race of warriors who conquered other planets for fun. In the past 10 years, they had destroyed 17 different civilizations. No one had ever seen a Krethak and lived to tell about it. "Are you sure?" Jake asked. "The ship shapes match old reports from the Vegan survivors," Lisa said. "Before the Vegans went silent 6 months ago." Jake remembered the Vegan civilization. They had been peaceful traders with advanced technology. One day, their radio signals just stopped. No one knew what happened to them. Now Jake had a terrible feeling he knew. "Send a message to Earth Defense Command," Jake ordered. "Priority 1. Admiral Brooks needs to know about this right now." The communications officer started typing quickly. Jake watched the alien fleet on the screen. They were moving in perfect formation, like a school of deadly fish swimming through the dark ocean of space. Their ships were black and covered with spikes. Even from far away, they looked dangerous. "Message sent, Captain," the communications officer said. "Travel time to Earth is 6 hours. 6 hours." Jake hoped Admiral Kevin Brooks would know what to do. Brooks was a smart man who had fought in the colonial wars 20 years ago. But this was different. This was bigger than anything humans had ever faced. "Dr. Hamilton, I want you to study everything we can learn about these ships," Jake said. "Use all our sensors. Find out what kind of weapons they have. Find out how fast they can go. Find out anything that might help us." Lisa nodded and went back to her computer. Jake watched her work. She was the best scientist on the station, but she looked scared. Everyone looked scared. Hours passed slowly. The alien fleet kept coming closer. Jake could see more details now. The ships were huge, much bigger than human vessels. The smallest ones were twice the size of human destroyers. The largest ones were like floating cities covered in weapons. "Captain," the communications officer called out, "we're getting a response from Earth Defense Command." Admiral Brooks appeared on the screen. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. Behind him, Jake could see the busy command center on Earth. "Captain Morrison," Brooks said, "we've received your report. Our intelligence people are looking into it now. What's the current status?" "The fleet is still approaching, Admiral," Jake said. "They'll reach the outer colonies in maybe 18 hours. We're trying to learn more about them." Brooks nodded. "I'm sending all available ships to defend the outer systems. It won't be much, but it's all we have. Keep watching that fleet. If they change course or do anything unusual, let me know immediately." The screen went dark. Jake felt alone again. He knew Brooks was doing his best, but 18 hours was not much time. "Captain," Lisa called from her station, "I'm picking up some kind of transmission from the alien fleet. Can you understand it?" Jake asked. "It's not in any language we know," Lisa said. "But the computer is trying to find patterns. Wait, I think I'm getting something." The speakers filled with a harsh grinding sound. It was like listening to metal being crushed. Then slowly words began to form. The voice was deep and cruel. "Humans will serve or burn," the voice said in broken English. "Humans will serve or burn." The message repeated over and over. Each time, Jake felt more afraid. The Krethak had been watching humans. They had learned some of their language. They had been planning this attack. How did they learn English? Jake asked. Lisa looked at her computer screen. Captain, I'm seeing something else. These ships, they've been near our colonies before. Look at these energy readings. They match reports from mining stations that reported strange sensor contacts over the past few months. Jake understood. The Krethek had been spying on humans for months. They had studied human settlements. They had learned about human ships and weapons. This was not a random attack. This was a planned invasion. Dr. Hamilton, send all your data to every human colony and ship, Jake said. Everyone needs to know what we're facing. Already doing it, Captain, Lisa said. Jake looked at the screen again. The alien fleet was closer now. He could see details on their ships. Weapon ports, armor plating, launch bays for smaller fighters. These were ships built for war, ships built to destroy other civilizations. Maya Johnson to Captain Morrison, came a voice from the communication system. Maya was an intelligence officer on Earth. Go ahead, Maya, Jake said. Captain, we've been analyzing the data you sent. These Krethak, they're worse than we thought. Every civilization they've attacked has been completely destroyed. No survivors. No prisoners. They don't negotiate. They don't show mercy. They just kill everything. Jake closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, the alien fleet was still there. Still coming closer. Still promising death and destruction. Understood, Jake said. We'll keep monitoring them. Good luck, Captain, Maya said. All of humanity is counting on you. The communications ended. Jake looked around the command center. His crew was working hard, but he could see the fear in their eyes. They all knew what was coming. The Krethak Empire was bringing war to humanity, and humans were not ready for it. The first attack came at dawn on New Denver Colony. Colonel Ryan Foster was drinking his morning coffee when the sky turned red with fire. He dropped his cup and ran outside. Above him, massive alien ships were dropping bombs on the city. All units, this is Foster, he shouted into his radio. The Krethak are here. Get to your positions now. Ryan had been a soldier for 20 years. He had fought rebels and pirates, but he had never seen anything like this. The alien ships were huge, black, and covered with weapons. They moved slowly across the sky like giant metal clouds, destroying everything below them. The bombs were not like human weapons. When they hit buildings, the buildings did not just break apart. They melted. The alien weapons used some kind of super-hot plasma that could turn steel into liquid metal in seconds. Colonel Foster, came a voice on his radio. This is Commander Wright in Fighter Squadron 7. We're moving to attack the alien ships. Nicole Wright was the best pilot on New Denver. She flew a small, fast fighter that could dance around enemy ships. But as Ryan watched her squadron attack the alien vessels, he knew they were in trouble. The human fighters looked like tiny insects next to the Krethak ships. Nicole's weapons hit the alien hulls, but they did no damage at all. The alien shields were too strong. But when the aliens shot back, their plasma beams cut through human fighters like they were made of paper. Right, get out of there, Ryan called on the radio. Your weapons can't hurt them. I can see that, Colonel, Nicole replied. Her voice was tight with fear. We lost half the squadron already. These things are impossible. Ryan watched one of the alien ships land in the middle of the city. A huge door opened and creatures poured out. They were the most terrible things Ryan had ever seen. The Krethak warriors stood 9 feet tall. Their bodies were covered with hard, dark armor that looked like the shell of a giant bug. They had 4 arms, and each arm ended in sharp claws that could cut through metal. Their faces were like skulls with red eyes that glowed in the dark. But the worst thing about them was not how they looked. It was what they did. Ryan watched through his binoculars as the aliens moved through the city. They were not just looking for soldiers. They were hunting civilians. When they found people hiding in buildings, they did not kill them quickly. They seemed to enjoy making people afraid. They would grab human children and hold them in the air while their parents screamed. Sergeant Martinez, Ryan called on his radio. What's your situation? Carlos Martinez was leading ground troops in the city center. His voice came back full of anger. Colonel, these things are using our people as shields. They grab civilians and hold them in front of their bodies when we try to shoot them. Ryan felt sick. He had heard stories about the Krethak, but seeing it was different. These were not warriors fighting for their homes or their beliefs. They were monsters who enjoyed causing pain. All units fall back to the emergency shelters, Ryan ordered. We need to protect the civilians, but even as he said it, Ryan knew it was hopeless. The emergency shelters had been built to protect people from storms and earthquakes. They were not built to stop alien plasma weapons. Across the city, Dr. Andrew Bell was working in his underground laboratory. He was a scientist who studied alien life forms. When the attack started, he began analyzing pieces of destroyed Krethak equipment. "This is incredible," Bell said to his assistant. "Their technology is completely different from ours. But look at this." He pointed to a screen showing the inside of a Krethak weapon. "Their plasma generators work on a specific frequency. If we could find a way to disrupt that frequency." An explosion shook the building above them. Dust fell from the ceiling. "Dr. Bell," his assistant said, "maybe we should leave." "No, this is too important," Bell said. "I think I found something. The Krethak have a weakness in their biology. Their breathing system can't process certain chemicals that are harmless to humans." Bell started typing quickly, trying to send his research to other human colonies. But before he could finish, more explosions came. The lights went out. Emergency power came on, but it was weak. "The building is collapsing," his assistant shouted. Above them, Krethak warriors were breaking through the doors. Bell could hear their heavy feet on the floors above. He typed faster, trying to send as much information as possible. "Almost done," he said. "Just a few more seconds." The door to the laboratory exploded inward. 3 Krethak warriors entered, their red eyes glowing in the dark. They saw Bell at his computer and moved toward him. Bell hit the send button just as the first alien reached him. He hoped his data would reach someone who could use it. In the sky above, Nicole Wright was still flying her damaged fighter. Most of her squadron was gone. Her ship had holes in it, and one of her engines was not working properly. "This is Wright," she said on the radio. "I'm the last one left up here. The alien fleet is moving toward the government buildings." Through her cockpit window, Nicole could see what the Krethak were really doing. They were not just conquering the planet. They were destroying everything that made it human. They burned libraries. They melted schools. They seemed to want to erase every sign that humans had ever lived there. "Nicole, you need to get out of there," came Colonel Foster's voice on the radio. "I can't, Colonel," Nicole said. "They're targeting the evacuation ships. If I leave, more people will die." Nicole turned her fighter toward the biggest Krethak ship. She knew her weapons could not hurt it, but maybe she could distract it long enough for the evacuation ships to escape. She flew straight at the alien vessel, firing everything she had. The Krethak ship turned to follow her, its weapons charging up. Nicole could see the plasma building in their weapon ports. She knew she was going to die, but the evacuation ships got away. On the ground, Colonel Foster was leading the last group of survivors toward the spaceport. They had to leave New Denver. The city was lost. Maybe the whole planet was lost. "How many people did we save?" Ryan asked his radio operator. "About 30,000, sir," came the reply. "Out of 2 million. Ryan felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. 2 million people lived on New Denver Colony. They had only saved 30,000. The rest were dead or captured by the Krethak. As their transport ship lifted off from the burning planet, Ryan looked back at what had been his home. The cities were gone. The farms were destroyed. Black smoke covered everything. But in his pocket, Ryan had a data disk. It contained Dr. Bell's research about Krethak weaknesses. Bell had died to get that information to them. Ryan was going to make sure his sacrifice meant something. "This isn't over," Ryan said quietly as New Denver disappeared behind them. The transport ship joined other refugee vessels fleeing deeper into human space. Behind them, the Krethak fleet was already moving toward the next human colony. They were like a plague of metal and fire, consuming everything in their path. But Dr. Bell's information was spreading to other human worlds. Scientists and soldiers were studying his data, looking for ways to fight back. The Krethak thought they had won an easy victory. They did not know that humans were just getting started. The asteroid mining station Vega 7 had been abandoned for 3 years. Its dark tunnels and empty chambers made it the perfect hiding place for what was left of humanity's military. General Patricia Kane walked through the old mining shafts looking at the makeshift base her people had built. "How many ships do we have now?" Patricia asked her aide. 37 combat vessels, General," came the reply, "plus about 200 civilian ships that we've been modifying." Patricia nodded. It was not much against the Krethak Empire, but it was something. After losing 3 colonies, the human fleet was scattered and desperate. Traditional military tactics had failed completely. Now they needed to try something different. "Where's Engineer Richards?" Patricia asked. "In Laboratory 3, General. He's been working on the captured Krethak technology for 2 weeks straight." Patricia found Tony Richards surrounded by pieces of alien equipment. The engineer had not slept much since they brought him the wreckage from New Denver. His hair was messy and his clothes were dirty, but his eyes were bright with excitement. "General Kane," Tony said when he saw her, "I think I figured something out. Look at this." He pointed to a Krethak weapon that had been taken apart. Wires and metal pieces were spread across his work table like the guts of a mechanical animal. "Their weapons and shields all work on the same frequency," Tony explained. "It's like they use one big radio signal for everything. If we can jam that signal, their technology stops working." "Can we build a jammer?" Patricia asked. "I think so," Tony said, "but it would have to be really big. And we'd need to get it close to their ships." Patricia looked at the alien technology. After weeks of losing battles, this was the first good news she had heard. "How close?" she asked. "Maybe a few 100 kilometers," Tony said. "The problem is getting that close without being destroyed." Patricia was already thinking, what if we hide the jammer inside something they wouldn't want to shoot? Like a refugee ship? Tony smiled for the first time in weeks. "That could work, General." In another part of the base, pilot Danny Clark was training new recruits in the asteroid field outside. Danny had been a mining ship pilot before the war started. He knew how to fly big, slow ships through dangerous areas. "The trick is not to fly like a military pilot," Danny told his students. "Krethak expect human warships to move in formation and fight like gentlemen. We're not gentlemen anymore. We're pirates." Danny's new tactics were based on his mining experience. Instead of fighting fair battles, human ships would hide behind asteroids and attack when the enemy was not ready. They would use mining explosives as weapons. They would ram damaged ships into alien vessels. "But what if they shoot back?" one of the new pilots asked. "Then you run," Danny said. "Fast. The Krethak are stronger than us, but we're more creative. We can think of ways to hurt them that they never imagined." Dr. Amanda Price was working in the medical section, finishing Dr. Bell's research. Bell had died on New Denver, but his data about Krethak biology had survived. Amanda was a biochemist who specialized in creating medicines. Now she was trying to create something very different. "The Krethak respiratory system is interesting," Amanda explained to her assistant, Gary Thompson. "They can breathe many different types of air, but certain chemical compounds make them sick." "How sick?" Gary asked. "Very sick," Amanda said. "Maybe even dead. The good news is that these compounds are harmless to humans. We breathe them every day without problems." Gary looked at the formula on Amanda's computer screen. "So you're making poison gas?" "Not exactly gas," Amanda said. "More like a spray that we can put into their air systems. Once it gets into their ships, they won't be able to breathe." "Is it ready?" Gary asked. Amanda sighed. "Almost. I need to test it first, but we don't have any live Krethak to experiment on." "Maybe we can capture one," Gary suggested. Amanda looked at him like he was crazy. "Have you seen how big those things are? How would we capture a 9-foot-tall alien warrior with 4 arms and metal claws?" Before Gary could answer, alarms started ringing throughout the base. General Kane's voice came over the speakers. "All personnel to battle stations. We have Krethak scouts in the area." Patricia ran to the command center. The main screen showed 3 Krethak ships moving slowly through the asteroid field. They were smaller than the main battle vessels, but still dangerous. "They're looking for us," said Major Lisa Ross, the intelligence officer. "If they find this base, they'll call in the main fleet." Patricia watched the enemy ships on the screen. This was their chance to test Tony's frequency jammer and Danny's new tactics. "Launch Squadron 5, Patricia ordered. "Danny Clark's people. Tell them to use the new tactics we practiced." "What about the jammer?" Tony asked. "Not yet," Patricia said. "Let's see if we can handle 3 ships the old-fashioned way first." Danny led 12 modified mining ships out of the hidden base. His pilots spread out among the asteroids, trying to look like they were just rock miners doing their jobs. The Krethak scouts moved closer, probably wondering why humans were mining rocks during a war. "Remember," Danny said on the radio, "wait until they're really close. Make them think we're harmless." The largest Krethak ship moved within 50 kilometers of Danny's group. Its weapons were charging up, ready to destroy what it thought were helpless civilian miners. "Now," Danny said. The human ships dropped their disguises. Hidden weapon ports opened. Mining charges that had been attached to asteroids exploded all around the Krethak ship. The alien vessel was suddenly surrounded by flying rocks and metal fragments. While the Krethek ship was confused, Danny's pilots attacked from all sides. They did not try to fight fair. 2 ships rammed into the alien vessel while others fired everything they had at its engines. The Krethek ship tried to fight back, but it was designed to battle other warships in open space. It could not handle 12 small ships attacking from different directions while asteroids exploded around it. "Their shields are down," one of Danny's pilots reported. "Hit the command section," Danny ordered. 3 modified mining ships fired their drilling lasers at the Krethek bridge. The alien ship lost control and crashed into a large asteroid. The other 2 Krethek scouts tried to escape, but human ships were waiting for them. Using the same tactics, Danny's squadron destroyed both vessels before they could send a warning to their fleet. Back at the base, everyone was cheering. It was the first real victory humans had won against the Krethek. "How did we do it?" General Kane asked Danny when he returned. "We stopped trying to be soldiers," Danny said. "We started being humans instead. We used our brains, not just our weapons." Dr. Price was excited too. The battle had given her something she needed: pieces of Krethek technology with air samples from inside their ships. "Now I can test my compound," she told Gary. "If this works, we might have a real weapon against them." Patricia looked around at her people. For the first time since the war started, they looked hopeful instead of afraid. The Krethek were still stronger and had more ships. But humans were learning to fight dirty. They were learning to use their creativity and determination as weapons. "This is just the beginning," Patricia told her officers. "The Krethek think they're fighting the same humans who lost at New Denver. They're wrong. We're not the same people anymore. We're something new, something they've never faced before." Outside the base, more human ships were arriving every day. Survivors from the lost colonies, civilian vessels converted into weapons of war, pirates and miners and traders who had decided to fight back. The Krethek Empire was about to learn something important about humans. They were much more dangerous when they stopped playing by the rules. Earth hung in space like a blue marble, beautiful and peaceful. But around it, humanity was preparing for the biggest battle in their history. The Krethek Empire had decided to end the war by attacking the human homeworld directly. Admiral Kelly Rogers stood on the bridge of Luna Base, looking at the defense screens. 30 human warships were all that stood between Earth and 400 alien vessels. It was not enough, but it was all they had. "Admiral," said Commander Frank Torres, "the Krethek fleet will reach Earth orbit in 6 hours. Kelly nodded. 6 hours to save the human race." Around Luna, the old mining tunnels had been converted into massive railgun installations. Every piece of space junk and asteroid debris had been turned into a weapon. But Kelly knew it still might not be enough. "Any word from Captain Martin's team?" Kelly asked. "They launched 20 minutes ago in the captured Krethek shuttle," Frank replied. "So far, so good." Captain Steve Martin was leading the most dangerous mission of the war. His team was going to sneak aboard the Krethek flagship and deploy Dr. Price's atmospheric weapon. If they succeeded, they could disable the enemy command ship from the inside. Steve sat in the pilot seat of the alien shuttle, trying to look like a Krethek warrior. The disguise was not perfect, but it might fool their sensors long enough to get close. Behind him, demolitions expert Linda Shaw was checking her equipment for the 10th time. "You nervous, Linda?" asked Pete Jackson, their communications specialist. "Terrified," Linda replied honestly. "We're flying into the middle of the biggest alien fleet ever assembled, planning to poison their command ship, and hoping we can escape before they figure out what happened." "When you put it like that, it does sound pretty crazy," Steve said. The Krethek fleet was enormous. Steve had never seen so many ships in one place. The largest vessels were like floating cities covered with weapons and armor. Smaller fighters swarmed around them like angry insects. "Remember," Steve told his team, "we're just another Krethek ship returning from patrol. Act bored, act tired. Don't act like we're about to save the human race." The alien shuttle approached the flagship without being challenged. Steve had studied captured Krethek communications and learned their basic radio procedures. As long as no one looked too closely, they should be able to land. "Krethek Command. This is Patrol Vessel 779 requesting permission to dock," Steve said in his best alien voice. "Permission granted," came the reply. "Bay 12, Steve smiled. Sometimes the best disguise was confidence. Back near Earth, the human fleet was getting ready. Admiral Rogers had spread her ships throughout the solar system, using planets and moons as cover. This was not going to be a traditional space battle. It was going to be an ambush on a massive scale. "All ships, this is Admiral Rogers," Kelly said on the fleet radio. "Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to make them pay for every inch of space. Use everything we've taught you. Be creative. Be unpredictable. Be human." The first Krethak ships entered the solar system like a wave of darkness. They moved in perfect formation, confident in their superiority. They had conquered 17 civilizations. Humans would be number 18. But as they approached Earth, strange things began to happen. The asteroid belt exploded. Thousands of remote-controlled mines had been hidden among the rocks. When the Krethak fleet passed through, the mines activated all at once. Explosions lit up space like a fireworks display. Several alien ships were damaged and their perfect formation was broken. "What was that?" demanded the Krethak fleet commander. Before anyone could answer, more surprises came. The moon opened fire with its hidden rail guns. Chunks of metal the size of buildings shot through space at incredible speeds. When they hit Krethak ships, they punched holes completely through them. Human warships appeared from behind planets and moons, attacking from all directions at once. They did not fight like a proper fleet. They fought like pirates, hitting and running, using every dirty trick they could think of. Commander Beth Palmer led a squadron of converted civilian ships in a ramming attack against a Krethak battlecruiser. Her ships were not as strong or as fast as the alien vessel, but they were piloted by humans who had nothing left to lose. "All ships, target their engine section," Beth ordered. "If we can't destroy them, we'll make sure they can't chase us." The civilian ships hit the Krethak battlecruiser like hammers hitting an anvil. They were destroyed on impact, but their sacrifice crippled the alien vessel's engines. Meanwhile, Steve Martin's team had reached the Krethak flagship. They were walking through the alien corridors trying to find the ship's air recycling system. The inside of the ship was dark and hot, filled with the smell of metal and something else Steve could not identify. "The air system should be 3 levels down," Linda whispered, looking at her scanner. They reached the engineering section without being detected. The Krethak air recycling system was huge, with pipes and filters running throughout the ship. Linda began setting up Dr. Price's atmospheric weapon. "How long will this take?" Pete asked, watching the corridor for enemy patrol. 5 minutes to set up, then another 5 minutes for the compound to spread through the ship," Linda replied. "Contact," Pete whispered. "Krethak patrol coming this way." 2 alien warriors were walking down the corridor, talking in their harsh language. Steve stepped out to meet them, hoping his disguise would hold up under close inspection. The Krethak looked at him suspiciously. One of them said something in their language. Steve did not understand the words, but he tried to act natural. "Human infiltrators detected," one of the aliens suddenly roared. "Alert all stations." The disguise had failed. Steve pulled out his weapon and fired, but the Krethak warriors were incredibly tough. His shots barely slowed them down. "Linda, how much longer?" Steve shouted as he ducked behind a pipe. 2 more minutes, Linda called back. Pete opened fire with his rifle, trying to keep the aliens back. More Krethak were coming down the corridor. Their weapons fired plasma that melted holes in the metal walls. "We're not going to make it," Pete said. "Yes, we are," Steve replied. He grabbed a thermal charge from his belt. "Linda, when I say run, you run for the shuttle. Don't look back." Steve activated the thermal charge and threw it at the approaching Krethak. The explosion filled the corridor with fire and smoke. "Now!" he shouted. Linda finished setting up the atmospheric weapon and ran. The compound began spreading through the ship's air system immediately. Behind them, Krethak warriors were coughing and choking as the chemical affected their breathing. The team reached their shuttle just as alarms began ringing throughout the flagship. Krethak were collapsing all over the ship as they breathed the poisoned air. "Go, go, go," Steve shouted as he started the shuttle engines. They flew away from the flagship just as it began to lose control. Without its command crew, the massive ship drifted helplessly through space. The battle around Earth was reaching its climax. The human fleet had taken heavy losses, but they had hurt the Krethak badly too. Admiral Rogers watched as enemy ships tried to regroup. "Admiral," Commander Torres reported, "their flagship is out of action. Whatever Captain Martin's team did, it worked." "Good," Kelly said. "Now let's finish this. All ships concentrate fire on their command vessels. Without leadership, they're just a bunch of angry ships. The human fleet attacked with everything they had left. Mining ships fired explosive charges. Cargo vessels rammed into alien destroyers. Even civilian craft joined the battle, using whatever weapons they could find. The Krethak fleet began to break apart. Without their flagship to coordinate them, the alien ships could not work together effectively. Some tried to retreat. Others kept fighting, but they were outnumbered and confused. Dr. Price's atmospheric weapon had turned the tide of battle. The chemical compound was spreading to other Krethak ships through their air recycling systems. Alien warriors were collapsing all over their fleet. "Admiral," Torres said with excitement in his voice, "they're retreating. The Krethak fleet is pulling back." Kelly watched the alien ships flee toward the edge of the solar system. For the first time since the war began, humanity had won a major victory. But the cost had been terrible. Half the human fleet was destroyed. Thousands of brave people had died to save Earth. As Kelly looked at the wreckage floating in space, she knew this was just the beginning. The Krethak Empire was vast and powerful. They would be back with more ships and better tactics. But something had changed. Humans had proven they could fight back. They had proven they would not go quietly into the dark. "Send a message to all human colonies," Kelly ordered. "Tell them we won. Tell them Earth is safe. And tell them we're coming for the Krethak next." 6 months had passed since the Battle of Earth. The space around the human homeworld was busy with construction. New warships were being built in orbital shipyards. Defense stations were being upgraded with the latest technology. Humanity was no longer just defending itself. It was preparing to go on the attack. Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted after his heroic work at Deep Space Station Horizon, stood on the bridge of the new flagship Defiance. Behind him stretched the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. 200 ships filled with soldiers, scientists, and supplies. They were going to chase the Krethak back to their own territory. "Admiral," said Captain Sarah Brooks, his second in command, "all ships report ready for jump to hyperspace." Jake nodded. It was hard to believe how much had changed in just 6 months. After nearly losing the war, humans had not only survived but become stronger. They had learned to fight in ways the galaxy had never seen before. "Take us to the Kalos system," Jake ordered. "It's time to free our first alien world." The Kalos system had been conquered by the Krethak 5 years earlier. The native Kalos people were peaceful traders who had never fought a war in their history. When the Krethak arrived, the Kalos had tried to negotiate. The result was slavery and death for millions of innocent people. The human fleet jumped through hyperspace and emerged near Kalos Prime. What they found made Jake angry. The beautiful planet that had once been covered with cities and farms was now a barren wasteland. Krethak factories covered the surface, turning the world into a giant weapon production facility. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Mike Taylor from the sensor station, "I'm reading about 50 Krethak ships in orbit, plus multiple defense platforms. Any sign of Kalos survivors?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir. There are slave camps on the surface. Looks like the Krethak are using the native population as forced labor." Jake felt his jaw tighten. This was why humanity was fighting, not just for their own survival, but to stop the Krethak from destroying other civilizations. "All ships battle formation," Jake ordered. "We're going to show these aliens what humans learned about war." The human fleet attacked with tactics the Krethak had never seen before. Instead of charging straight at the enemy, they spread out and struck from multiple directions. Fighter squadrons led by veterans like Commander Danny Clark used hit-and-run attacks that confused the alien defenders. But the real surprise came when Dr. Amanda Price's new atmospheric weapons were deployed. Human ships fired special missiles that released the breathing poison into Krethak vessels. Within minutes, alien crews were collapsing at their stations. "Krethak flagship is losing power," reported Captain Brooks. "Their crew is evacuating." "Good," Jake said. "Signal the landing forces. It's time to liberate those slave camps." "General." Patricia Kane led the ground assault with an army of human Marines. They landed near the largest slave camp, where thousands of Kalos people were being forced to work in terrible conditions. The Krethak guards were not expecting a rescue mission. They were used to fighting scared colonists and helpless civilians. They were not ready for trained human soldiers who were angry about what they had seen. "Remember," Patricia told her troops as they approached the camp, "the Kalos people are the victims here. Protect them first, worry about the Krethak second." The battle for the slave camp was over quickly. Human soldiers used their knowledge of Krethak weaknesses to disable the guards without destroying the camp itself. When the gates opened, thousands of alien refugees poured out, crying with joy at their unexpected freedom. Dr. Lisa Hamilton, now humanity's chief xenobiologist, was among the first to make contact with the freed Kelos. The aliens were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large eyes. They had been slaves for so long that many of them were afraid to believe they were really free. "We are humans," Lisa told them through a translation device. "We came to help you. The Krethak will not hurt you anymore." An elderly Kalos stepped forward. He was obviously a leader among his people, despite the rags he wore and the scars on his body. "Humans," he said in broken English. "We heard stories that you fought the Krethak and won. We thought they were just dreams." "Not dreams," Lisa replied. "We're here to help you rebuild your world." Word of the liberation of Kalos spread quickly through the galaxy. Other alien civilizations that had been hiding from the Krethak began sending secret messages to humanity. They wanted to know if the stories were true. Had humans really defeated the most feared empire in known space? Commander Nicole Wright, who had survived the destruction of New Denver, was now leading diplomatic missions to these alien worlds. She traveled in a fast scout ship, making contact with species that had been hiding in fear for years. On the planet Meridia, she met with the Meridian Council. The Meridians were an ancient race of scholars and philosophers who had retreated to hidden colonies when the Krethak began their expansion. "We have watched your species for some time," said Council Leader Vex. "Your approach to warfare is unusual." "We do what we have to do," Nicole replied. "The Krethak don't fight fair, so neither do we." "Indeed," Vex said. "But it is not just your tactics that impress us. It is your motivation. You fight not just for conquest but for protection of others. This is rare in the galaxy." The Meridian Council agreed to share their advanced technology with humanity in exchange for protection from the Krethak. Other alien civilizations made similar deals. Soon, human ships were being upgraded with new weapons and defenses that no one had ever seen before. Back on Earth, the government was dealing with a new problem: success. After years of barely surviving, humanity was suddenly the most powerful military force in their region of the galaxy. Other species were asking to join the human alliance. Trade agreements were pouring in. Former enemies were begging for protection. President Robert Chen met with his advisors to discuss the situation. "The vegan survivors want to join our alliance," said Secretary of Defense Maria Lopez. "So do the Centauri Republic and the free worlds of Sigma." "What do they want from us?" President Chen asked. "Protection from the Krethak," Maria replied. "And they're offering to share their technology and resources in exchange." It was a difficult decision. Humanity had never been an empire. They had always been the underdogs, the ones asking for help instead of giving it. Now they were being asked to lead a galactic alliance. "We'll need to be careful," President Chen said. "Power corrupts. We can't become what we fought against." Meanwhile, Admiral Morrison was planning the next phase of the war. Intelligence reports showed that the Krethak Empire was in chaos. Their defeat at Earth had caused rebellions on several conquered worlds. Other alien species were rising up against their Krethak oppressors. "We have them on the run," Jake told his staff, "but we can't let up now. If we give them time to regroup, they'll come back stronger than ever." The human fleet moved from system to system, liberating conquered worlds and freeing enslaved populations. Each victory brought new allies and new technologies. The alliance grew stronger with every battle. Dr. Price had perfected her atmospheric weapons to be non-lethal. Instead of killing Krethak warriors, the new formula just made them unconscious. This allowed human forces to capture enemy soldiers instead of destroying them. "We're not monsters," Price explained to a group of reporters. "We fight to protect innocent people, not to commit genocide. Even the Krethak deserve a chance to change." Some captured Krethak were indeed changing. Away from their empire's brutal culture, a few alien warriors began to question their beliefs. They started working with human scientists to develop new technologies for peace instead of war. The final battle came at the Krethak home system. Their capital world was defended by thousands of ships and orbital fortresses. It should have been impossible to attack. But humanity no longer fought impossible battles the traditional way. Instead of a direct assault, the human alliance surrounded the system and began broadcasting messages to the Krethak population. They told them about the worlds that had been liberated. They showed them what life could be like without constant war and conquest. Slowly, the Krethak Empire began to collapse from within. Entire fleets surrendered rather than fight. Planets declared independence. The warrior culture that had terrorized the galaxy for decades was finally breaking apart. When the war officially ended, humanity found itself in a position no one had expected. They were the leaders of a vast alliance of different species. They were the protectors of peace in their region of space. Captain Morrison, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, stood on the bridge of his flagship as it orbited the former Krethak capital. The planet below was already changing. Weapons factories were being converted to produce medicine and food. Former slaves were returning to their home worlds. "Sir," said Commander Brooks, "we're receiving a transmission from the outer colonies. Unknown ships approaching human space. They're asking for help against something called the Vorthan Swarm." Jake smiled. It seemed like humanity's work was never finished. There was always another threat, another species that needed help, another war to prevent. "Set course for the outer colonies," Jake ordered. "Let's go see what's out there." As the human fleet prepared for their next mission, Jake thought about how far they had come. A year ago, humanity had been on the verge of